The meeting will come to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday, February 11th, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Education. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Victoria Boucher. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Christine Bello.
Here.
Ms. Thomasina Bello.
Here.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher.
Here.
Ms. Victoria Boucher.
Here.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Here.
Mr. Duray.
Present.
Mr. Howard.
Here.
Ms. Politi.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Okay, at this time, I'm very pleased to introduce our acting superintendent, Dr. Lisa Buon, who represents leadership and talent from within our very own district family. We believe that with her vision and expertise, we will continue to build on our strong foundation and will be able to navigate the challenges ahead with confidence and purpose. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Buon to her new position as acting superintendent. Okay. And now we'll move to public comment on non-agenda items. On agenda items, sorry.
I've been asked to read the following from the board president. Public comment at board meetings. All speakers and observers must conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene language, defamatory statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. Any speaker who is unable to speak at the podium tonight can email the Board of Education members at boemembers@necsd.net with their concerns. The first person signed up to speak on agenda items is Ms. Melissa Lamar.
Good evening. Melissa Lamar, New Windsor taxpayer for 30 years. I have 3 children, graduated from the district, and I have taught here for more than 20 years. Years ago, I felt free to talk directly to the Board of Education at these meetings as a teacher. I always felt I spoke in the spirit of collaboration. I hope we can have that level of collaboration again. I want to begin by quoting Kareem J. Weaver, a noted literacy activist and Oakland NAACP Educating Committee Chair and Vice President. You may recognize his name as he was featured in the film, The Right to Read. He wrote, "But how did you reduce suspensions? We taught kids how to read. But how did you improve attendance? We taught kids how to read. But how did you reduce teacher turnover? We taught kids how to read. Sometimes answers really are simple, just not easy," end quote. We can no longer afford to ignore this simple answer. Surrounding districts, our state, and our country have moved forward in the science of reading. We cannot minimize the effort or misinform about the kind of change we need. Teachers that I know have tried unsuccessfully to communicate the needed change and collaborate. It is my greatest dream that we can work together now to get this right. To do this, we have to address this district's greatest resource in terms of how much taxpayers are investing, our teachers. I've heard people repeat that following a purchase program is necessary so that students can transfer seamlessly between schools in the district. Not only was this reasoning reductive in the problem we are facing, but my expertise advises that it's simply untrue. The truth is that in order to facilitate the science of reading, all of us must forgive ourselves for the things we did not know. We have to learn the things that we don't know. Personally, I have had to change my practice at a very fundamental level. This required reading, working with other teachers, taking professional development, and putting it into action. It required changes in assessments and interventions, and it required being intentional in the use of data and resources like teacher time. Teacher knowledge matters, both in terms of experience to inform and in terms of what we know and how to incorporate new knowledge. This is the essence of education. Education is a science that is always improving upon itself. Now, more than ever, I am asking that this district link me to current empirical research in the science of reading, because it is my belief that without this, at the foundational primary levels, we will continue to see the majority of our students not reading at grade level. In addition to that, we will need to address the students who are missing phonological awareness across all grade levels with interventions that are based on the science of reading. Teachers need to be trained continuously in advances in education, not in how to use teacher manuals or where to find things in the latest purchased program. Only a teacher has the expertise to curate and differentiate for students. The over-reliance on programs that have been purchased, in my opinion, is one cause of why we have not moved with the rest of our country towards a solution to the reading crisis. It has been my observation that many of the box programs that have been purchased are planes building themselves while flying, and the emphasis must be put back on investing in the practice of the professionals the board has hired. When we try to shop our way out of issues in education, teachers are faced with changing programs, unusable materials, damaging micromanagement, and the impression that there is a lack of regard for our opinions as educators. Some of the professional development I have sat in has been little more than salespeople explaining a product. I also want to say that the expectation that data is produced and produced and produced without intention makes me wonder if data-driven instruction is somehow interpreted as simply gathering data and meeting deadlines. When you purchase programs without collaboration and tell teachers to use them with fidelity, what I have observed is that they have had to suffer the stress and pressure of unrealistic pacing for their students. The students have had to deal with constant assessment and a disjointed and inconsistent patchwork of programs without regard to what is developmentally appropriate. And most heartbreakingly, the students could not read. We need everyone to get on board. I've heard time and again that without a paid program used with fidelity, students will not learn to read. How students learn and where they are in reading development via intentional science of reading assessments can easily be determined by teachers with the proper expertise whenever they receive a student, mid-year or any other time. I'll finish during my next speaking. Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak on agenda items is Ms. Tamika Stewart. Okay, we'll move on. The next person signed up to speak is Mr. Ronaldo Santiago.
Good evening, Superintendent, members of this board. Ronaldo Santiago, New Windsor. I have 3 children in district. What I would like to speak to tonight is the superintendent's update, where the latest report on the iReady reading and math scores were given. First and foremost, let me thank the administration for providing this data. I think it's long overdue, even though the picture it paints is quite bleak. Now, during the beginning of this school year, I heard a lot of discussion as far as the ARC reading program was concerned, and I heard a lot of discussion speaking of implementing it with fidelity, and what is the deadline for implementing it with fidelity. Admittedly, in the educational context, I did not know what with fidelity meant. So for people who might be watching on a live stream who asked the same questions I did, with fidelity, as far as I understand it, is meaning that the materials set within the curriculum for that grade levels are the only materials that are set to be used. Ergo, if you're teaching 6th graders, only the 6th grade resources, tools, and literature that ARC designates as the 6th grade tools and literature are to be used. Now, especially in the case of our children, where looking at these numbers and seeing that for the 6th grade, at least 36 of our student body, roughly a little more than 1 in 3, is 2 grade levels behind on their reading. To me, to implement this program with fidelity is equivalent to handcuffing our teachers. I'm going to give you a hypothetical. If you're teaching a 6th grade student, and unfortunately at that moment in time, that student has a 3rd grade reading level, as you as educators know, and as common sense dictates, there are certain vocabulary and concepts that are available at a 6th grade level that simply do not exist down at a 3rd grade level. If the curriculum dictates that the teacher can only use those materials, then it seems to be an exercise in futility and frustration to use those resources that child simply at that point is not going to understand. Especially when, as teachers, I grew up in a family of teachers. Teachers have different tools for different kids. They are on the front lines. They are the ones teaching our children. I would defer to their experiences and their knowledge as far as how best to impart information. But if we're going to implement this, and honestly, you can put it with any curriculum. Slot ARC, slot whatever curriculum is, any curriculum is going to have weaknesses. And I asked this at the beginning of the school year. What is being done to shore up those weaknesses so we can bridge that gap to reach those children and pull them up to the level that they need to be at? So, of course, when I read this presentation, I found this information very concerning, especially as the district, as far as I understand, plowed forward with a plan to implement this curriculum with fidelity. Nothing against ARC, nothing against the materials. But if you are literally taking options away from teachers, then that, in my view, is not enabling them to help our students, who, by these numbers, so desperately need it. Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Ms. Vanessa Nisperos.
Good evening, Acting Superintendent, board members, and community members. My name is Vanessa Nisperos, and I'm the Associate Director of the Academy for Community Behavioral Health at the CUNY School of Professional Studies and the Office of Innovative Learning Solutions. I'm also a mother with 2 students in district and a taxpayer in district. Thank you for the opportunity to share urgent concerns that demand our collective attention. It's been a while since I've been to one of these meetings, and a lot has changed since then. As we navigate district changes, 4 critical challenges have arisen that I'm reading into the record to center this body to reimagine education with agility, collaboration, and bold action. First, our nation's political landscape has shifted in ways that challenge our shared values of equity and inclusion. The current federal leadership's policies may not align with the needs of our students. It requires us as a district to safeguard our district's commitment to justice and to critical thinking. Second, the climate crisis has reached a dire inflection point. Although we have withdrawn from climate accords 5 days ago, the top global experts on climate change have said that we have surpassed the 2-degree global warming threshold. This means that within 2 decades, many cities in our country will face environmental calamity. Our children's literal futures hinge on integrating sustainability into curricula and infrastructure now. Third, public health remains fragile. New York City last week updated hospital emergency protocols to test for bird flu, as it's already been detected in the city, and has shut down all live poultry markets. We can expect or anticipate that this is already going to impact our district. This body needs to be prepared for facing another pandemic in your tenure. Fourth, a few hours ago, $1 billion in federal education contracts were canceled. This loss demands creative community partnerships, budgeting, and advocacy to protect students' opportunities. What do these 4 challenges have to do with public education? As people around the world sound the alarm about what's happening in this country, they have come to the consensus that we can only actually democratically elect what amounts to fascism in a very uneducated society. I am bringing these to your attention because I have literally thought about moving back to New York City and paying $4,000 a month in rent as I've seen the hot mess of this district unfold. In this district, we are not cultivating the two fundamental building blocks of democracy. That is basic literacy and functional literacy. Anyone working in this district as an educator or administrator who cannot define the two should literally quit your job now. I am not saying this to be a pain in your ass, but I will be a pain in your ass. The majority of my career, I have been a young adult counselor, a mental health counselor, and an advocate. And the unifying factor in the East and West Coast for what makes the difference between a gang-affiliated youth and an incarcerated youth, do you know, any of you know, raise your hand if you know the one distinguishing characteristic that makes a difference for what we call opportunity and at-risk youth, succeeding or failing. Thank you, sir. It is early childhood literacy attainment above all other factors, above caring, mentoring adults, above access to higher education and training, above any other opportunity we put in front of our youth, the number one factor between intergenerational poverty. And I am saying this with disgust in my voice because of every city and school district in the United States of America, probably none needs a strategy to address intergenerational poverty more than this one. More than this one. That is not a figure of speech. Nationally, the way social services were repealed nationally that has caused intergenerational poverty in 2025 in America was piloted in the city of Newburgh in the 1950s. This district needs to get its proverbial head out of their behind and get it together. I ask you to please convene parent committees that have the ability to participate with two-way communication virtually, anticipating that we will be in another pandemic or it has already started. Number two, to move forth a motion from this body to ask that people have disclosures when they're speaking at the public comments, to say if they are a parent or a taxpayer in district and if they receive any money in any capacity from this district. I will start. I'm a parent and a taxpayer in district and I have never received payment in this district. Thank you very much.
The next person signed up to speak is Ms. Tracy Wallace. Move on. The next person signed up to speak is Reverend Dr. Torrance Robertson.
Good evening to the acting superintendent, to the board members. Tonight sounds like a more collaborative meeting than the last one I attended, and I hope it remains that way. I want to begin by introducing myself. I'm a parent in the district. My niece, nephews, and godchildren go to the district. I made the mistake before about talking about someone else that I knew that worked for the district. I'm not going to do that again because I don't want that person to be retaliated against because of what I have to say. The questions I have, my background, I'm a retired educator, principal from New York City, assistant principal, district math coordinator, science teacher, etc. I've done that for 20 years and I retired back in 2017. I moved up to the Newburgh area about 22 years ago when I got married because my wife lives up this way, so I couldn't stay in the city and I couldn't get her to move down to the city, so we ended up in Newburgh, and so that's how I'm here. My absence from prior meetings has been based upon the fact that I have so much work that I'm tied to in the city that I haven't been able to get up here, but certain things have happened and occurred that have drawn my attention and now got me involved in what is going on in the community I live in. Having no bones to pick with anyone, I have specific questions which meetings like this, I believe, are convened to address. I have questions about things being done decently and in order. I have questions about legal input into decisions made. And no big secret from our last meeting, I really stand in support of the superintendent that has been suspended with pay. I'm a little concerned about the way it was done, and I believe that when we talk about transparency, there should be no questions that a community has that voted you in that cannot be answered by the board. At some point in time, I would like to know when we're going to find out why the superintendent was removed from her position. Again, this is no slant against anyone. You make the decisions you make. You're in charge right now. You got voted in. But we still have questions because things still have to be done in a certain way. So that's the first question I have. Then, and again, this is not throwing rocks. I've heard it spoken of in the community, so I have to ask. Has the acting superintendent been involved in any litigation against the district? Because in the district that I came from, anytime you have litigation against a district, you cannot be employed by that district, especially not when you win. And so there's a question in the community about that. Whether or not it will be answered, I don't know, but I have to ask the questions because the people are going to ask me about this after the meeting. Regarding transparency, is there a clause in the deputy superintendent's contract allowing for them to fulfill the role of acting superintendent in the absence of the superintendent? And if so, why hasn't the deputy superintendent been allowed to fulfill her role as acting superintendent? I'm just questioning the way things are done. And when things are in writing, it can open up the district to unfortunate liability, if a person decides to go that route. Thirdly, regarding the makeup of the school board, is there an item on the agenda talking about transparency that is allowing a vote for family members to serve on the Board of Education and support the block voting on issues that the community has questions about? I referred to two sisters and an aunt and a niece serving at the same time on the board, forming a majority, which is called the Clear Coalition or the Clear Choice Coalition. That's what I've heard from the last meeting. And I wanted to know how that works. And if, according to New York State standards, New York State Education Department standards, if that's allowed. I have questions about that. Also, there's not litigation, but there's negotiations coming up for the teachers union this year. And in some litigation, the acting superintendent, I understand, has mentioned the teachers union in that litigation. And if that's so, how can the acting superintendent oversee negotiations for the teachers union that has been mentioned in an issue with the acting superintendent? Again, I'm asking questions because that's what's in the community. And that's all I have to share right now. But I will say this, I appreciate those who've come up and talked about the need for early education and teaching children to read. Next time I get up, I'll talk more about that, but thank you for the time you've given me.
There's nobody else signed up for public speaking on agenda items.
Mr. Clerk, I believe the first woman you called, she walked in right after you spoke, called her name, Tamika Stewart.
Ms. Tamika Stewart?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for that recognition. My name is Tamika Stewart, and I'm a resident of Newburgh. What I want to say now, I want to preface it to the public. No disrespect to everyone in the U, but I think it's high time that we really start talking to each other because they're not listening. So I want everybody that is in earshot of my voice and in this room to hear what I'm saying.
Ma'am,
yes.
Please direct your comments to the board.
Okay, so to the board, I want you all to know that we are now committed to making sure that we do something different in Newburgh School District. Last time we were here, the board, we had a conversation and over 50 people signed up to join the new Newburgh Alliance. The Newburgh Alliance is a new group that we are forming so that we can identify viable candidates that will run for the school board, that will make sure the school board is a priority in working with the school district to make sure that our agenda for our children in our district is put forward and put forth. So if you would like to be a part of the board, If you would like to be a part of the Newburgh Alliance, please let me know. You can sign up. I have some email lists in the back that we are doing. We have community outreach that we are putting forth. We have a whole website that we have, and we need to start getting behind viable candidates that we can support for the district and make sure that the school board is holding themselves accountable as well as holding the district accountable. We can no longer do this alone, and we need to do it collectively. So that is my message. That is what I'm going to say. My name is Tamika. You can email me at tamika@Newburgh Alliance, and we are going to get this done. I told the board before that the last time a lot of us fell asleep at the wheel when it came to the school board elections. We will not do that again. We are fully woke, okay? This cannot happen. And why I say that is very important. What we have been saying for the last how many months has fallen on deaf ears at the board. There is a majority here at this board that is not concerned about our children. They are not concerned about the district. They're not concerned about teachers. They're not concerned about curriculum. They're not concerned about reading levels, literacy, or anything. They have personal agendas, and we have to figure out a way to combat that. And we don't do that alone. We do that collectively. In agreement? Excellent. So please, that's my comment. We will be here, and we have already started. We will have info sessions. We have training sessions. We have committees that we will be forming because we will get this done. Thank you.
There's no one else signed up to speak on agenda items. If anybody else would like to speak on agenda items, please come to the podium.
Good evening. How everyone up there doing today? Great, paying attention? So, my daughter, London Johnson, you know, anytime I come up here is when I'm having problems. And the district, she's behind in reading. It's very poor. I'm having her evaluated. We need more programs. We need more programs for our children. My daughter's not reading on the 4th grade reading level. That disturbs me. It's unfair. And anytime I had a problem or I wanted to get something done, I would email the superintendent, I would email Rob Gawaki, and things would get done. I can't email the superintendent. Why is that? Because you guys don't like what she's doing. She's helping the community. She's helping me with my child. She's helped other people. People done got suspended. People done got kicked out of school. She's advocated, and she's really a big advocate for my daughter, London, who looks like her. Brown girl who want to get to the top. I want London to have a doctor behind her name one day. But instead, you guys are up here fighting amongst each other. Top 5. Top 5, I know all of you. You was just in my inbox telling me you want to have coffee with me, and then when I don't agree to you, you block me. That's not working with me. That seems like you're working against me. I am London's fighter. I fight for my child. I've been through problems in school when I was younger. I can't have history repeat itself. I don't want no fucking check from SSI because you want to put her in special education. That's not happening. What I want is her to be able to read on grade level. Only thing you can offer me is a SSI check if my child is put in special education. It's not about the money. I'm never gonna put her in special education. I'm her biggest advocate. I want my daughter in services that you 5 blocked. You blocked the goddamn services that my child needs to have, no, hey you. Miss Flower Lady, come on. Come on. So what? It's about my child's education. It's about you guys up there not being held accountable. And I'm talking to y'all, and I would like y'all to pay attention to me when I'm talking to you. Hello? Excuse me, I'm not cursing anymore. Come on, we need these programs. I want my daughter to read not on kindergarten level. She's 10, she's about to go to the 5th grade. She's not even really interested in going to school because she's not keeping up with what's going on. That's not a problem with you? Excuse me, Broadway. Hello, miss, I'm talking to you.
Ma'am, point of order.
My daughter's reading on a low reading. Can we please get the programs instead of blocking it? So then I got some rich friends that live in Goshen, right? And I was having a conversation with them. They said, Carla, we used to block everything at the board. We thought our taxes were going down. They never really gonna go down. They was gonna go up percentages. So if you told your friends that you were only on this board to bring down taxes, you're wrong. However you look at it, it's gonna go up by percentages. So let's start adopting some of these reading programs and some of these math programs so that my daughter could get up in her reading levels. One day I want her to be like Dr. Campbell Manning, a black, strong, educated woman. Is anything wrong with that? Hello? Is anything wrong with that? When I came to your flower shop to buy flowers for my teacher that was retiring, you had a whole lot to say to me then. Now you can't even hold a eye-to-eye contact with me. I was cursing in that goddamn florist shop too, that the flowers were expensive.
Ma'am, this is not a discussion.
So what? I'm talking about my daughter's education and reading.
Okay,
you
but
guys keep blocking all of the programs, and it's not benefiting my brown child. And it seems like it's a brown thing because my daughter look at my phone. Oh my God, mommy, they suspended the superintendent. What type of message is that you sending to her that she can't be high power one day? She already ain't reading grade level. So what can we do to fix the problem? Half of the district is under reading. And you could take every position away from Dr. Campbell, but you can't take away her education. And that's what I want for my brown child, that education, because you can't take that from her. That's all I'm asking. Stop blocking reading and math programs. My daughter is behind in grade level, and it's becoming frustrating to her. She doesn't even want to go to school because she can't keep up.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on agenda items? Please come to the podium.
Dennis Grant, Newburgh. I've had 3 kids that graduated all honors. To the acting superintendent, welcome. Today I speak to you not just as someone in the position that you are acting in, but as a reflection of the choices you made to get here and the environment that you are a part of as acting superintendent of Newburgh and Large City School District. I do not know you personally. I'm sure you are a remarkable individual, but let's be clear. Your words, your actions now stand in direct contradiction to each other. And when someone moves in ways that seem hypocritical or opportunistic, the question I must ask is, who do you truly serve? Because when you align yourself with the old guard of this district, you don't become their equal, you become their tool. And history has shown us one undeniable truth. Those who serve as tools for self-serving systems are always discarded when they are no longer useful. In other words, they always break their tools. Does this sound familiar? Plaintiff, an African-American woman of West Indian descent who served as principal of South Middle School, asserts claims of discrimination under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You stated some time ago that black women are not interchangeable in this school district
and yet here you sit replacing a black woman. I ask you, what do you think is going to possibly happen here? Because in this district,
Mr. Grant, your comments need to be directed to the board,
okay,
not to any individual, to the
Okay.
board as a whole.
to the board. Because in this district, payback isn't just a saying, it's a pattern district. And often it comes to those who never see it coming, district, board. Now, let's talk about the stated priorities in the article. Safety. The only one thing I can see that you could do differently in this, God forbid, another school safety crisis happens, you instead stand firm as acting leadership. I don't think you may do that. You'll just simply whisper behind closed doors, ensuring that the abstention 5 and their family and friends feel empowered with information. Reading. The board want every child to read on or above grade level. That's admirable. It really is. But how? Have you had plenty of time to think about it when you were on vacation? Or bringing something new as an acting superintendent? Or just repackaging what we already have? And to the board, what are you going to implement? The science of reading? Well, the American Reading Company, aka ARC, which was already discussed, which the district already implements, is in alignment with the science of reading. It's science of reading, is it not? Okay, we'll talk. Our district has already invested the direction of science of reading through the ARC method, because in the ARC website, it says exactly what you said, that we are quoted, no, that you were quoted in saying in the article that ARC's mission is to ensure that every child in America is reading and writing at or above grade level. So what I read in the article about bickering must stop, that's cap. I'm mentioning ARC because, one, we're finally starting to talk about the kids again. You remember them? And two, ARC is in alignment with Governor Hochul's Back to Basic Reading Initiative. Is it not? Is it not? Okay, we'll talk. So I ask again, what will be different under your acting leadership? What will change in the board? Because change without strategy is just chaos, and strategy without integration or integrity is just deception. This district does not change overnight. They don't shift courses like a speedboat. They turn slowly, cautiously, and you know that, and the board knows that, like a massive ship in dangerous waters. And when a ship turns too late, history has shown us what happens. Titanic. So I close to the board and acting superintendent. As you sit in the chair, are you truly here to steer the district towards something better? Or are you here simply selling the illusion of change while the course remains in the same through the abstention 5, old guard, and the bullying teachers union contract talks heat up? Because if that's not the case, or if that's the case, we already know.
Time's
the
up,
end
Mr.
result.
Grant.
Yes, it is. I have no problems talking. I have no problems talking about
Thank you, sir.
ARC and science of reading.
The 30-minute time has expired for agenda items. We'll be moving on to non-agenda items. The first person signed up to speak on non-agenda items is Miss Maggie Welling.
Hello. I absolutely hate speaking when I don't make people laugh, so I'm a little bit nervous. Like I mentioned at the last meeting, this is our 24th and final year as parents in the district. Our district tends to be the laughingstock of the Hudson Valley online whenever there's bad press, bad press online about schools. People assume Newburgh. Yet my youngest just made a film that's going to be entered into local film festivals, who is a senior, with 5 other NFA students about Crystal Lake, promoting Crystal Lake, and that was all NFA students. So it really irritates me when people talk bad about the district. And then you watch these meetings. I don't come to these meetings. My husband goes to these meetings, but I do watch them online pretty religiously. There is Some members of this district, and one in particular that makes this district seem infantile, rolling their eyes, doodling in their notebooks, slouching like a petulant child. When you watch something with a touch screen, you can zoom in and see all the multiple faces this person makes. This is the face of the Newburgh School District. This person must not care about these proceedings because they're bored and should either remove themselves from the board or board should take action. This is the person making the decision for my kids, my neighbors, my taxes. So I had a couple of college students over, all over 21, and they were watching this, and it became a drinking game for them every time certain people voted exactly the same way, predictable, every time. They drank a lot. So the image that you're putting out is one of, it's just awful. I don't know why you're sitting there doing things that are not for the children. Whatever. So speaking of bad images and stuff in the world outside, I really want to know if Newburgh has a response, if ICE attempts to enter into one of our schools, making sure that we don't scare children, and also making sure that every Goldback walks across Academy Field. Every Goldback walks across Academy Field. Also, with what's going on in the world, are we still going to be celebrating Black History Month, Women's History Month? Are we still going to be learning about the real American story, like the Trail of Tears, the Great Migration, the Japanese internment camps? Or is that going to stop too? And my one little bone to pick also is please get the names of your board members right. It's really, really annoying at this point. It's such a lack of respect. Just do that. Get the names right. Thanks.
The next person signed up to speak is Miss Melissa Lamar.
I'm just going to continue what I was saying about literacy to finish that up. I've heard time and again that without a paid program used with fidelity, students will not learn to read. How students learn and where they are in reading development via intentional science of reading assessments can easily be determined by teachers with the proper expertise whenever they receive a student mid-year or any other time. To hear over and over that we must adhere to purchase programs because that is the only way students will have seamless instruction has frankly been an insult to my profession. Uniform fidelity to a program is not necessary. Consistent and aligned understanding of current research, methods, and interventions is. We need the systems created to support that. We need the professional development and the collaboration that supports that. I have witnessed Dr. Lisa Buon put these systems in place. And as a teacher who loves my craft and knows that giving me a script is a waste of teacher expertise and talent, I look forward to the advances she is about to achieve for the students of this school district, as she did in my school. Education is not stagnant, it is dynamic and exciting. It is my fervent hope that we will follow Dr. Buon's lead in prioritizing our students and their learning. This is the reason I became a teacher. This is the reason I took a job in my home community. We do not have time for the extravagance of building an image. Genuine image follows performance. Dr. Buon, I am amongst so many educators who congratulate you and are eager to work beside you. I am confident that my work and viewpoints will be heard as you have always allowed them to be. In the spirit of professional congeniality, I thank you, and I thank the Board of Education for its wisdom in this most recent decision. You have no idea how much this means in terms of the profession that I love, or how much I believe it will help my students with success that will resound throughout your community. Thank you. And now, I just want to talk briefly about the tenor of what has been happening at board meetings. As a taxpayer, I just want to remind everyone, this body, this institution is the Board of Education. It is the Board of Education. A fight is something that someone wins. A fight is something that someone wins. A debate is had to examine views and solve a problem. It seems to me that we will solve more problems if we observe the rules of debate instead of fighting one another. I also wonder if perhaps everyone could entertain the idea, even just for a moment, that your perception is different than a shared understanding from a meeting of ideas. Politics has obviously crept and will continue to creep into this institution. I may be naive, but I believe that most of the people in this district are interested enough in our children that we can take a moment to recognize whether our beliefs are self-serving or may have been curated and told to us because of politics. A while back, I was a technology teacher before those positions were eliminated. I used to teach a course in digital citizenship. In order to help make social media productive, students used this measure before they wrote or spoke publicly. I think it would benefit us all to think about this, and just this. Ask yourself, this is what we said to students, if what you are going to say is true, and how do you know that it is true? Is what you are going to say kind? Is it necessary? Is it helpful? If the answer is no, maybe what you are about to say should be left unsaid.
The next person signed up to speak on non-agenda items, Mr. Dennis Grant.
Dennis Grant. We often hear about the issues of students bullying other students. It's a major concern that we constantly address, and rightfully so. The impact of bullying on students affects their mental health, academic performance, their reading, and overall well-being, and it cannot be understated. It is something we all work hard to prevent and combat. But today I want to talk about an issue that is just as harmful, yet rarely discussed: bullying among adults in schools, specifically teachers bullying other teachers, and principals bullying teachers, sometimes even the other way around. While the power dynamic in these situations may differ, the effects of such behavior are just as damaging. We tend to focus so much on students because they are in the spotlight, and rightfully so, but there is an aspect of school culture we often overlook. Adults in the building, teachers, administrators, and staff also experience bullying, and it's important that we acknowledge it. Teachers, principals, like students, are not immune to the pressures and the challenges of their work. They face long hours, their heavy workloads, and the constant stress of ensuring their children succeed. But when bullying occurs between colleagues, it creates a toxic environment that affects not just those directly involved, but the entire school community. The consequences of adult bullying are so important. It can lead to high levels of stress, burnouts amongst teachers and staff and administrators, and even turnover, which ultimately impacts students' learning and the school climate. And children can definitely see adult bullying in simple interactions amongst adults. They can see that clearly. Bullying among teachers can take many forms. It can be subtle, like undermining a colleague's ideas or taking credit for their work. It can be more overt, such as making cruel comments, excluding someone from important meetings, or creating a hostile work environment. And let's not forget that principals and administrators, who hold a great deal of power and respectability, are sometimes the perpetrators of bullying as well. But bullying doesn't just happen from top down. It can happen among colleagues too. So when we do what we can do about this, first, we need to recognize that bullying among adults is real, definitely in the school district, and has a major effect on the school environment. Is not just a part of the job or something that should be tolerated. Teachers too need to stand together, support one another, and challenge any negative behavior that threatens to harm the collective spirit of the school and learning. Also, I recommend you implement and enforce professional bullying to weed out unnurturing issues in this district. Oh, and for the acting superintendent, we would like to request a side-by-side comparison of the last agreed upon contract and this year's contract once the teachers' union contract is finalized, so that we can see, because it's public record, right? It's public record. So that we can see, and since I'm curious to see the difference in how it reflects your approach and your purpose. Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Mr. Jeff Ehlers.
Jeff Ehlers, New Windsor. I'm here tonight not just as a concerned parent, but as someone who is upset with the disgraceful treatment of our football coaches and staff and our student athletes. For over 3.5 months, this program, its coaches and players have been unfairly punished and left in limbo. What is the delay? What is the holdup? Since November 5th, many parents in our community have expressed concern over the lack of communication from the district. The silence has led to uncertainty and frustration, especially for parents and athletes seeking clarity and decisions regarding the football team, their celebratory events, and the fate of the coaches. Multiple requests for meetings have gone unanswered. The district has sent a clear message that hard work, dedication, and success mean nothing. That after 20+ years of commitment, you can be discarded without explanation. Coaches have been forbidden from speaking to the players, but serve as their gym teachers. These restrictions not only stifled the coaches' ability to advocate for their athletes, but also added pressure and uncertainty for the players who were eager to seize opportunities for scholarships and advancement in their football careers. A championship caliber team had its season ripped away, its future prospects destroyed, and its postseason awards stolen, all because this administration refused to do the job in a timely and fair manner. 3 months ago, I mentioned that some kids could miss out on scholarships. Well, college recruiters, some from Syracuse University, have moved on, and the students missed out. Postseason honors went unawarded, and livelihoods are being impacted. And for what? A selective enforcement of policies that don't even make sense. Explain to me why at 2:18 p.m., students from 3 campuses can leave school completely unsupervised, take buses and walk home and head to activities without issue, but after practice, suddenly coaches are expected to escort players off campus as if they're babysitters. Explain to me why the doors that the coaches never unlock are now their responsibility to secure. We were recently told that the actions of a few did not define the whole in reference to the shots fired incident in front of the school at dismissal. Yet when it comes to the football team, that same logic is conveniently ignored. Here, the actions of a few have been used to dismantle an entire program, erase the achievements of an entire team, and smear the reputations of an entire coaching staff. One coach that I know of, who is soon to be inducted into the High School Wrestling Coaches Hall of Fame, was blocked from coaching this winter. He was even blocked from volunteering to coach. And other coaches have been recently found out that they are being blocked from spring coaching positions they have held for years. Football players cannot engage in winter workouts as the coaches are prohibited from working with them, hampering their development and their preparedness for the upcoming season. Thousands of dollars, I cannot stress the amount of money that's out there. Thousands of dollars in equipment still remains uncollected. Typically, coaches prioritize sending equipment out for reconditioning, a process that takes months to ensure readiness for the next season. Unfortunately, the athletic director should have facilitated the return of this equipment sooner. The equipment is in jeopardy of not being available for next season. We refuse to sit by and watch you stall and sabotage the hard work of these athletes and coaches. You have a choice to make. You can either continue this shameful, drawn-out punishment, ensuring that a pillar of the community is destroyed, or you can do the right thing, immediately reinstate the coaches, restore fairness, and end the blatant, unjust persecution. Do the right thing and fix this. Now, when I mentioned that, I volunteered for years as a football coach in Goldback's youth football. I was in charge of the equipment. I can tell you right now, there's only a couple of companies on the East Coast that do it. If you do not get the equipment in a timely fashion, you're at the bottom of the rung. You're way down here. We have camps in June. There's a very good chance that those helmets haven't even been collected yet, are not going to be ready for the June camps, and we'll be lucky to have them by August. I've seen it happen. Kids show up to practice for a couple weeks and they don't have the equipment. It's got to get taken care of.
The next person signed up to speak is Ms. Erica Perez.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Acting Superintendent. Sorry, I'm moving a little slower today. I was going to start with the football team, but Mr. Jeff did a great job at that, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But my son would like to know, are they going to get a banquet? Are they going to get anything? Everything got stripped from them. That being said, the reason why I truly am up here today is for a current problem that was brought to my attention, and I honestly don't understand how more parents have not come up to speak on this, or maybe the girls haven't said anything. But apparently our winter sports, girls basketball particularly, have been locked out of the locker room for the majority of the season by the athletic director, and they were told to change in the gymnasium. And if they're not comfortable with that, they were giving a classroom that has windows outside. So guess what? There's nothing covering them. So if they're in the gymnasium, they're getting recorded taking their clothes off, because there's a camera in our gyms. So how many of our parents know this? How many of our girls have spoken up about this? Because I am dumbfounded. I'm like literally blown away that this was so blatantly disregarded and overlooked for the safety of our children. We just turned our girls into victims. He just turned our daughters into victims. You know, and on another note, I go to a lot of events after school. You go through a metal detector, but they don't run your ID in Raptor. So how do you know that you're not letting an offender on campus and having our girls change in an open classroom or open gymnasium? How? How can he hold his head up high? And how can our prior or our current superintendent hold their head up and have made this decision for our females? How many of our daughters don't even know that this is illegal and against their safety? How many of our children do not realize that they're now currently victims? Our security is always watching those cameras. Haven't we run into problems before with security and young girls? So why are we having them change where they can be seen? I've got girls saying, oh, well, I try to go to the bathroom, but, you know, if it's too many of us, we get kicked out. Obviously, you know, it's not supposed to be a whole plethora of them in there. But when they have no place to safely change, something's got to give. Over at North, they get let in by their coach. The girls who haven't changed in the porta potty. Have any of you ever tried changing your clothes in a porta potty? It's crazy. The amount of money that we spent on renovating these locker rooms, why are they locked out? I was given the excuse our coach has to be in with us. All right, fine. An adult has to be there. I agree, because this is what happened with football. But why can't a security guard stand outside those doors and make sure that all hell isn't breaking loose in there? You could hear. We're not deaf. So why would we turn our young women into victims before thinking of another solution? This is not the first time either. 2 years ago it happened, again to the girls' basketball team, and again prior to that. So this is obviously a common thing, that we just allow our girls to be viewed while undressing. Somebody has to stand up and do something about our sports teams, and somebody has to do it now, before something happens and you are really gonna have a problem. Because honestly, right now, if those were my daughters, I'd be heading to an attorney, because you just recorded her as a minor. Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Ms. Tamika Stewart.
Thank you for that. I'm really hoping that with the acting superintendent, or however this is going to play out, that something positive comes of it. I'm not sure that that is going to happen, because I've seen, and we've all seen, that there are 5 members of the school board who are reluctant to getting anything done. So I'm hopeful, but I'm realistic in knowing that that probably is not going to be the case. And I've been talking to the public, because most of the time they're not paying attention anyway to people who are up here talking anyway. So it's the people that are in the audience that are really paying attention, because you can obviously see that they are not. I want everybody, the board, to be mindful of the dates of the election, and when petitions are due for the election, please be mindful of the election. I need everybody to tell a friend, and to tell 5 more friends that the petitions will be due at the end of February. And this is really not about anybody that they're electing to put in place, right? It's not about that. If the board is not operating functioning in a capacity where they're trying to make decisions that affect our children, it doesn't matter who's going to be the superintendent or the acting superintendent. It doesn't matter. At this point, this board, to me, is negligent in their duties. And that's a problem for us and our children. So it doesn't matter who is sitting in the middle of that today or tomorrow. If the board is not functioning properly, we're gonna continue having these problems. The petitions are due. You get the petitions, they'll be available February, at the end of February. I think Matthew McCoy will be making an announcement, or should be making an announcement about the petitions. Everybody pay attention to the school board election. Do not fall asleep at the wheel, or we will be dealing with this again. And I'm here to tell you that when somebody shows you who they are, you should what? Absolutely. We need to believe them. This is who they are. There is no turning back, regardless of who's in that seat. And if we want any superintendent to be effective, or any superintendent to have the support that they need to actually help our kids, we have to make sure that the board is functioning properly. And at this time, the board is not functioning properly. So we need to make sure that we have good people on the board that understand the district, understand the mechanics of working in a school district, and understand what our teachers need and also what our students need, so that we can get things done. This board does not. Whatever personal agendas that they have is beyond all of us, but it affects all of us. And I don't care if you have children in the district now or before, it still affects us. And I want to make this point. It doesn't matter. People talk about ideology and politics. That doesn't matter. Because whoever you voted for on November 5th, the consequence is showing now, whether you did or you didn't. We are all going to pay the consequence of what happened on November 5th. And we have to be able to protect ourselves at a local level, and it starts with our school board. Losing funding, regardless of whoever you voted with, we all have to deal with. And we get an opportunity to change that and change course at the school board and at the school board election. Please, this is urgent. We love to talk about we care about our kids, but if we're not making sure the right people are in place to get things done, it doesn't matter. We will still have these same issues over and over again. We got to do something different. And it's not going to happen with this current school board. So my thing is, we are pushing for elections. Elections matter. We saw it happening in November. Regardless of who you voted for, it's going to affect Newburgh schools, okay? It matters, and it matters in regards to who we vote for this school board. February, petitions, school board election is May 21st. 20th is the election, but we're going to have all that information plastered all around all of the towns, so don't worry about it. Thank you.
Madam President. Madam President, would it be possible for the clerk to clarify some of that information? I know Ms. Stewart was speaking and was passionately speaking, but I think she said something that's incorrect, and I don't want people to get that information and then not hear the correct in regards to when petitions are due or when they're going out. Can the clerk speak to that, please?
As part of Resolution 5.2, petitions will be available Friday, the 21st of February. They're due back in the clerk's office in a city school district 20 days before the election, which would be April 30th at 5 p.m.
Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Mr. Ronaldo Santiago.
Good evening. One quick point I wanted to add to my earlier comments. The problem I brought forth to the board when I was speaking of as far as children and their reading level, the hypothetical I used as far as the sixth grade reading at a third grade level, one important point that I forgot to drop was I was speaking from the perspective of a native English speaker. I asked that the board be mindful and the administration be mindful. Imagine that problem with implementing a reading program with fidelity, having that problem as a native English speaker versus having that extra problem as an English as a second language learner. It's already tough enough for those kids. And just imagine, we have a problem with our reading level with our children, and I would imagine from my conversations that I've had with some of the library staff, because some of the libraries, I've talked to some of the library staff, and they've told me how there are children present studying. They're studious bunch, God bless them. But imagine the problem of also disseminating information to the Spanish-speaking parents that they need. I've heard from different people throughout the town, especially for our exceptional learners, when you have the onus of, as a parent, of calling for a 504 meeting, or calling for an IEP meeting. I've actually heard from some Spanish-speaking parents that they have been dissuaded from actually having a 504 IEP meeting. I know it's one or the other. To be honest, I can't remember if it's a 504 or an IEP, but some parents were being dissuaded in pursuing what their child needs as far as English as a second language learner and being an exceptional learner. So I ask that the superintendent and administration please be mindful of that, because that's very important. One of the other points that I wanted to bring up, as far as another speaker mentioned, its security and safety, regarding the shooting that occurred here in front of NFA. One of the points that I brought up to this body is that one thing we still have not heard anything from, or haven't heard from, is Mr. Gerasi, our head of security. Now, I remember the previous administration saying that they were working with the head of security. They were making sure that our processes and our procedures were in place, and kudos to them for locking down the schools the way they did. But as a policy-making body, I'm making the suggestion that if there comes a point, hopefully not, but just in case, if there comes a point where there's an event whereas the schools one school or several schools need to be locked down, I think it's my personal belief that the head of security, within 2 school board meetings, 30 days, to give him time to investigate the incident, to document, should be coming to one of these meetings to report to the public exactly the incident went down, if there were any breakdowns in our policies and procedures, and what can we do to mitigate student safety going forward. Because especially from my military time, I can tell you, sometimes it's about a show of force. And having the head of security here giving a report, showing the community that, look, it was an incident, it was a scary incident, thank God, that particular incident I'm speaking about, no one got hurt. But if we have the head of security here making a report, it shows the community that, look, we are being serious, we are addressing this problem, we are on it. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that we need to have information right away. I understand investigations take time. And that's why I say within 2 board meetings, 30 days, I think that's enough time worth of investigation. I believe you have some expertise up on that board to knowing about investigations, but the public needs to know that our kids are safe. And I think showing the head of security is on top of things, I think that would help in making sure that the community knows, yes, our kids are safe. Thank you.
The 30-minute timer has expired, ma'am.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session for advice from council.
Are you kidding?
Not all the way to the library, maybe somewhere closer.
There's a motion to go into executive session. Can I have a second?
Second.
And roll call.
Ms. Thomasina Bello,
No.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher,
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Duray,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello.
No.
That motion passes.
Okay, before we go any further, Mr. Shaw is going to address a parental concern that was brought up at the podium. Mr. Shaw?
Thank you, Madam President. During one of the speakers' presentations from the podium, there was a question raised regarding whether or not cameras in the gymnasium were being used to view female students who are in a state of undress. So the camera system in the gymnasiums is off during instructional hours. After instructional hours, other than during games, there isn't a recording of what is viewed in the gymnasium. There is no evidence the district has that its security staff has been viewing naked students. This is something that they're going to inquire into, just to assure this cannot happen. Thank you.
Okay, so right now I'll turn it over to Dr. Buon for the superintendent's update.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay. Hopefully it's being projected down there. Okay, thank you. I would like to thank our Board of Education members and our Newburgh community for allowing me to serve as your acting superintendent. My two immediate goals: one, the safety and security of our children, and two, to ensure that all of our children are reading on or above grade level. While both of these topics are essential, I would like to begin by sharing our iReady reading, testing, and math data with our community. iReady is a test that students in kindergarten through 8th grade take 3 times a year. I am sharing our end-of-year outcomes for the past 4 years, from the 2021 school year to the 2024 end of school year. We do not have 5 years of end-of-year data due to the 2019-2020 school year COVID-19. When you look at this data, I want to share that dark green means a student is above grade level. Light green means a student can tackle grade level instruction. Students in yellow are 1 grade level behind and need targeted support to be ready for grade level instruction. Students who are in red are 2 or more grade levels below where they need to be. In 2020, 31% of our children were performing on or above grade level in math, and 37% were on or above grade level in 2024. Giving you a moment to just look at the data. The next 3 slides break out the end of the year results by grade level in math. These are how students performed in the last 4 years in K-1, 2nd grade and 3rd grade. Fourth, 5th, and 6th grade. 4 years of data. I want you to notice as our students are getting older, the students who are in jeopardy and 2 years or more behind keeps going up as our students get older, based on our iReady data. This is our math for grades 7 and 8. Here's our reading data. In 2021, 41% of our students were reading on or above grade level. And by 2024, 42% were reading on or above grade level. So in 4 years, we went up 1 percentage point in reading. The next 3 slides will break out the end of the year results by grade level in reading. This is K3. Again, the same pattern as our students are getting older in the grade levels, they're having more difficulty attaining grade level reading instruction. This gives me chills. Where do we go from here? It is imperative that we as a district move forward with the science of reading. Our leaders, teachers, and teaching assistants must receive training on how to implement evidence-based reading instruction. I'm going to stand firm here today and repeat what the teachers in our district have been saying for a while now. ARC is not working for our children. It is fine as a resource for books, but does not have the necessary evidence-based research practices for sufficient instructional value for all of our children. Therefore, I cannot morally ask teachers to teach with fidelity a program that does not benefit all of our children. We need to rely on the experts in this field, which is why we are currently in talks with the Reading League New York to work with our district in order to change how reading is being taught. We have to invest in our leaders, teachers, and teaching assistants so that they are equipped with the evidence-based strategies that have been shown through research to work with all children. Our staff wants to do right by our children, and we need to equip them with the tools to do so. I look forward to sharing our plan as a district at a later date very shortly, and I look forward to the support and help from our community, because we're going to need you to ensure that no child will graduate from Newburgh unable to read. Reading is the key to all levels of achievement, including in math, so we have to begin there. And I welcome every single person who spoke tonight and everyone in our community to join us and join this board in making sure that this happens for every single one of our children. Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Howard.
Are we taking questions? Can we? Thank you. That's a great report, Dr. Bourne. But I need you to answer a question. The issues that we're having in our district with regards to reading, early literacy, is this a national issue also? It's not just Newburgh, am I correct?
It is a national issue that has been solved in other places, especially if you take a look at Mississippi. If you look at the Reading League New York and the districts that they have started to work with, they're making turnarounds and great gains for children.
Okay, so I would say to you that I don't think there's a person up here on this board or in this community that doesn't want our children to be able to read. When people say that they don't want, that they're attacking people saying that they're against literacy, no, I think everyone on this board, when you run for a school board, when you're a member of this community, you want our children to be able to read, because I'm a firm believer that literacy is the bridge to success. It is the equalizer. And I say that to you, because one of the major concerns, the real issues that we're dealing with for early literacy, is that 0 to 4 age bracket, but also poverty, opportunity, and access is a big issue with early literacy. How do we address that as a district, and what are your plans?
If you supply evidence-based practices to students in kindergarten, in early literacy, doesn't matter what background they're coming from, these practices work.
Okay, so I guess my question is this. I read a study where they say that children that have experienced early literacy from 0 to 4 in those homes and those backgrounds, we know what that looks like. The children that don't come from those demographics, when they get to our doorstep, there's almost a 10,000 word differential in those children. So how do we promote the rigor and the remediation at the same time? Because it's about money. So what are our plans? What are your plans? Or what do you visualize how to address those issues? Because it's a major issue. I've been over at the Armory for the last 10 years, big literacy components over there, and we found that the 0 to 4 age is really the difference maker. Because of what goes on in those households where early literacy is stressed and the ones where it's not stressed, we get all of them at our doorstep for pre-K and K. So how do we deal with the rigor and the remediation so we can bring those kids up to speed to where they need to be and where they should be?
We don't get all of them for pre-K. We do get all of them, for most of them for kindergarten, because and even kindergarten is not mandatory. But the difference is where students come to school if they're in a literacy-based home is a leg up. But democracy is not destiny. If we give children solid reading instruction starting at age 5 in schools, and we can do this, we can bridge that gap and have those children reading on grade level. We have to teach them how to break the code. We have to make sure that synthetic phonics is being taught in each of our kindergarten classrooms. If kids come to school in first grade and they don't know it, then we have to backtrack and make sure that we have research-based evidence teaching, because a program is not going to fix reading. We have to invest in our leaders, our teachers, and our teaching assistants, the ones on the front line in front of our kids. That's how we're going to get the bang for our buck.
And I hope we can, Dr. Baum, because in answer to the young lady that was speaking at the microphone, I mean, they've done studies at the prisons, and they've noticed that most of the children that come into the penal system are illiterate. So illiteracy is a pathway to that life for our children. And I think it's time for people to stop saying they don't want kids to be able to read. They're not for early literacy. They're not for reading programs. We all want what's good for our kids. And if you got an idea or you have a model that we should follow, I'm saying let's do it. I know we've been doing it. I hate to say that people that have been here haven't been doing it. Maybe we haven't been doing it correctly. Maybe we haven't been doing it with fidelity. But I think it's time for us to stop being opponents of each other. It's time for us to gather together. 9 is 1. 12,000 is 1. The 3 municipalities that we serve, over 100,000 people as one, and understand everybody wants success for our kids. And we need to stop pointing the fingers. We need to stop attacking each other. We need to get this right for our kids, because the only people who this really hurts, if we don't get it right, are our kids.
And I would respond, Mr. Howard, that I truly believe that every single board member sitting here believes in our children and believes our kids can improve in reading. I believe that.
Mr. Stewart.
You know, based on this, I suggest that we start a volunteer program to get the community involved, especially in the early years. They can come in, help the teachers, sit down with the kids, read to the kids. The more people we have in the classroom with kids individually, I think it's going to help them overall. And I think we are going to have plenty of volunteers.
Ms. Boucher.
So the iReady data only goes up to 8th grade. So I'm going to infer that past 8th grade, we don't have current data. But looking at this chart, I'm going to assume that past ninth grade, the gap is larger. So one, can we get data on high school students? And then I'm gonna hope that in your plan, there's also a high school plan, but how we address this at that level, because at that point, the gap is almost 50% or more than 50%. So, and that's where we start to see kids really get lost. Like, you know, at the high school level is where things start to happen, and once they're gone, they're gone. And I don't want that to happen for kids. So I'd really like to see, one, the data, to see where they're even at, because I think, you know, if they're at 52% in 8th grade, then I'm gonna assume it goes up past there. So if we can get the data and then have a plan for how you even begin to bridge that gap.
Mrs. Politi.
So I agree with you, Dr. Bond, that the reading does need to be addressed. I disagree with you, Mackenzie, because they don't get lost in high school. They get lost in middle school. Doesn't happen then. So there's a lot of throwing around about the science of reading, and we know that the science of reading is important. It's a body of research embodying, you know, years and years of how kids learn to read with their brains. But we do need to clarify that this is not a core reading program. It is a philosophy, it is research, and it is important research, but it's not like we can just switch from ARC to the science of reading. And in fact, the science of reading is embedded in ARC. Is it the right program for us? I'm not sure, but also speaking to the evidence-based program that we need to choose, that's true. We know that any reading program, the data shows, it's only going to serve about 80% of the population, right? So there's also talk going on about, fidelity and scripted. Well, if we are going to implement a research-based program, it does need to be implemented with fidelity. It needs to be done scripted, and it needs to be done across the board in all schools, not just certain schools operating on their own island. And we also need to find a program that addresses the big six, but also more than just phonics, because we have kids who are operating at a higher level than just the phonics, and they need reading instruction as well. So if you need help in decoding, that's fine, but then what if you can decode but then can't comprehend what that word means? Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm concerned about all of these things, and I think that we need to make a very conscious decision moving forward, and we also have to think about implementation and not make any rash decisions, because if we throw all the babies out with the bathwater, we're going to see slides backwards. We have to make sure that teachers are trained, teachers are given the tools that they need to implement a new reading program, and the time that it takes to do that.
If I can respond. Ms. Politi, I do want to say what I previously stated. No program is going to teach our children how to read. We need to invest in our leadership, our teachers and our teaching assistants on how to teach reading. I do not believe that any program will do what we need it to do. And we should not rely on
I'm sorry,
the
can you say
program.
that again? I couldn't hear
No
you.
program will do what we need to do, and we have to stop relying on programs. We really do.
But a program not implemented with fidelity and training is not going to work either.
And my belief is if we teach our teachers how to teach reading, coming from, someone who's got a master's in developmental and remedial reading from City College, woo-woo Dr. Robinson, it's training our teachers, because they're not trained they're not trained in the colleges that they come out of, which is what the work of the Reading League and the Science of Reading is asking for.
So I look forward to having more conversations about how that training is going to look in the future.
Mr. DeRay.
Mine is slightly longer, but I hope I could tie some of the things up tonight with a theme of reading. And I prepared, which I don't normally do, but a lifetime ago, when I was 5 years old, our one black and white television set failed. My parents told me they couldn't afford a new TV and I should get busy reading. Televisions are affordable now, but there's been no substitute for the gift of being able to read. But I'll begin with a question. What are the chances for success of a person who can't read? In 21st century America, using the term very limited is an understatement. Not being able to read is a pathway to a lifetime of struggle. If I printed these words I'm sharing with you, how many of our 8th graders would not be able to read them? The answer is 1 is too many. Throughout the course of human history, there have been many examples of those in power preventing those being controlled from learning to read. Slave owners, Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, all deliberately kept people from learning to read. Why? The reasons are basically that if people learned to read, they would have power, independence, autonomy, and the ability to spread ideas. And this threatened those in power. Yet here we live in a free country that is suffering from a failure to be able to read crisis, a crisis of our own making. We spend more on education than in virtually every country in the world, but we are nowhere close to the top in results. While the crisis is national, I firmly believe the solution is local. Recently, the National Assessment of Educational Progress test results from 2024 showed reading proficiency for 4th and 8th graders across the country was at the lowest point ever recorded back to 1992. 33% of 8th graders, 40% of 4th graders were unable to read at grade level. Those numbers represent tens of millions of children not reading proficiently. In all the data from these tests, there was one state that showed very positive results. Believe it or not, it was Louisiana. Louisiana jumped, gotta go back here, from 49th place to 32nd place in overall scores. It also was the only state to recover to its pre-COVID scare scores and add 6 additional points. It's not luck or coincidence they are getting results. The educators credit a simple going back to basics. Teachers at the K-3 level must take a course on the science of reading. Reading instruction focuses heavily on phonics and phonemic awareness. This is accompanied by high-dosage weekly tutoring. The state also administers reading tests during the year and keeps parents informed. This one is important. The state ended social promotion for 3rd graders who can't do read or math at grade level. In short, there's a conscious level to return to the ABCs and minimize or remove other distractions from learning that have been introduced to the classroom and eroded the actual time for learning in our public school system. We've all witnessed children getting on a bus for the first time. Each of them gets on with dreams of what they will become. Our job as adults, as educators, as administrators, as parents, is not necessarily to make their dreams come true. Our job is to provide the tools and foundation for them to achieve their dreams. And a primary tool is the ability to read. Like the majority of taxpayers, I'm not an educator. We rely on the professionals within the educational system to use our money wisely and do what works best for our children. Best means best educated. The job of the school board is not to determine what reading program is best. It is to advise and consent while understanding that the people around this table are the experts. To the new acting superintendent, I'm asking for a commitment to get this right. If we have reading programs that are working, let's keep them and expand our success. If we need to supplement them, then bring ideas in front of the board and do it. If you need to travel to another state where things are progressing better, then travel and bring back new ideas for discussion. If we need to scrap things, then provide the reasons and courage to do so based on your evaluation and the evaluation of other professionals, not the loudest voices on social media. Our children are counting on us. We owe them the gifts of independence, autonomy, freedom, and being able to read and express their thoughts intelligently as productive members of society. Please let's not disappoint them. Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Bourne, you said something, and I hope I heard you correctly, and maybe you can expound on it. Did you say that the colleges are not teaching the teacher how to teach reading? Is that what you said?
Yes.
You did say that. Okay, so what does that PD look like, and what would be the cost of something like that? Because you're saying that we're not teaching, the teachers don't have the capacity to teach to read coming out of school?
Unless you go to get a master's in literacy, regular education programs, they're not focusing solely on reading, they're covering everything.
Okay. So that leads to what I said earlier, that 0 to 4 is so important. So how are we going to penetrate those demographics and understanding the community that we serve here in the Newburgh and Large City School District? What is the plan to address the 0 to 4 high poverty, lack of opportunity, lack of access individuals that are coming to our doorsteps in the kindergarten grade? How do we address that?
By giving them high-quality teaching once they hit kindergarten. That can overcome the lack of literacy in the home.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Getting ready when they come to us. But there's not a plan in place. Because I know Newburgh Basics was doing something in regards to that. Is there a way that we can align with our community-based organizations, or something that we can do to get those children from 0 to 4? And I understand what you're saying. And I hope we can do that. But when they come so far behind the starting line, it's hard work. Is there any way we can help that be a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more, a little better for our children, that they're coming better equipped? Is there a plan in place? I mean, like Mr. DeRay said, sometimes we got to think outside the box. There's got to be a way for us to get into our community. There has to be a way for us to align ourselves with pediatricians, with the caregivers, something that's going on in this community where we can get to those kids from 0 to 4. Because if we just wait till they're 5 years old, I hear what you're saying the plan is, but it's not going to be successful because they're so far behind. Yes.
I am willing to work with any community member, any community agency, from birth to 12th grade, to help our children learn how to read. So the answer is yes. I will look into that.
Thank you, Dr. Bourne. And Dr. Bourne, I'm just passionate about this because I know the kids that it really affects, and I hope you do too, and I know you do. And I'm looking for the plan. And I'm not saying people previous to you didn't do it, but we tried. It's been tried forever. When will we get it right? And I'm hoping you come in with a panacea, something that's going to allow us to address those young people that are coming ill-prepared and ready to learn.
I'm going to turn over to Ms. Roaring for budget development. Not here?
Thank you.
Okay, there she is.
Good evening. We are going to do a budget development update this evening. We're going to talk about several of the operational areas in a little bit more detail. So if we go to our first slide. As we continue through the budget development process, we're going to review the additional funding requests and minor maintenance requests that the principals and directors submitted to us and see what of those we are able to support. We'll also continue to review grant-funded positions, particularly those grants that are ending and those positions that are currently covered in those grants. Continue to solicit input from our community members. It's important that we hear what's important to you, as well as meeting with our PTO and PTA, which initial meeting is scheduled for later this week. We'll continue to provide updates throughout the budget development process and share budget and program information by division as we go forward. All right, that's not advancing. So on our next slide, we're going to review briefly the reserve funds that we have.
Mr. Nibilo, can you advance the slide?
So the intended use per the State Comptroller's Office is really saving for those unexpected, major, non-recurring, and unforeseen expenditures. This is considered prudent financial management. We want to make sure that we're looking very carefully at how we're using those funds that we're able to set aside. Next slide, please. This chart we've shared with you previously. We wanted to reiterate that these are the reserve funds that the district has established at this time. Those that are in green are ones that we can use to support specific budgetary expenditures. Next slide, please. In this chart, you'll see what those current balances were at the end of June 30, 2024. It's important that we note again that $3.5 million is planned to be used in the current fiscal year. Next slide, please. So we shared with you previously some of these mandated expenditures that we have to do each year, and that includes out-of-district tuition, transportation for our students, services for special education and E&L students, testing, legal fees, instructional materials, our annual budget vote, as well as contractual salary increases and benefits associated for our staff. Next slide, please. When we look at our biggest expense drivers, it really is our human capital. We spend the most on our contractual salaries for faculty, staff, and administrators, followed by the benefits associated with those contractual obligations that include the retirement system contributions. Our third largest driver is student transportation. Next is out-of-district tuition, which includes foster, charter school, and exceptional learners. And our last one is our debt service, which includes debt for capital projects that were done previously, as well as the work that's currently underway that you can see, particularly at our CTE building that's going up very quickly, which you'll hear a little bit more about shortly. Next slide, please. So we shared with you that this year we did a true rollover budget, which means that we looked at everything we're doing in the current year and said, what does it cost us to do that next year? So we looked at the increase in benefits, the increase in contractual salaries, and our transportation out of district tuition, and said, this is what we project it will cost. Next slide, please. We shared with you that we project that increase at this time to be $9.8 million. However, we have known expense variables that we're going to continue to work through as we go through budget development. One of those variables are our incoming kindergartners. Right now, our Exceptional Learners Office is doing annual reviews, and they are looking at what our students need, and that will impact our budget. We also have an increase in the Contract for Excellence set-aside. This is a mandated set-aside, so when we get our foundation aid, let's say that number is $181 million, off the top, we have to take off for 25-26 almost $22 million and spend it in very specific ways. We are not allowed to supplant, so this has to be new programming. So we're looking at how we roll over what's been in there and what we'll have to add that will best support our students. We also, as I mentioned, are looking at grant positions, and we're looking at settlements the district may anticipate. Next slide, please. So we've done our initial revenue projection, and you'll see on this slide that we anticipate our revenue to increase by a little more than $14 million going into next year. The assumptions made in that projection include no increase in the tax levy. It includes increases in projected excess cost aid as well as utility taxes, and this is based on the last couple of years of actuals. We are projecting more in excess cost aid than right now the governor's budget tells us to anticipate, because that's what we've seen to be true. And we have also a planned appropriated fund balance at this point of $3.7 million, which we shared in the last meeting that we would be doing. Next slide, please. So this is our line-by-line initial revenue projection, and you'll see in here some of the largest areas of increase. There's 1.6 increase in the consumer utility tax. You'll see in our basic foundation aid down here that we have a little bit less than $159 million coming in that we can spend in various ways. But we also have that prescriptive set-aside in the Contract for Excellence of almost $22 million next year. That's important for us to pay attention to. We have appropriated $3.7 million, as we indicated we would, and you'll also see in the middle of the chart significant increase in both excess cost aid and private excess cost aid. Next slide, please. So my colleague, Ms. Slimer is going to present to you on the human resources area of the budget.
Thank you, Ms. Roaring. So before I get started on the presentation, I just want to mention the help that I received from Ms. Roaring and the rest of the executive team in getting this slide presentation ready. Before I get into my slides, I just want to make a statement about what I've always believed the role of HR in a school district is. We need to be part of the success plan for school districts. And we do that by recruiting highly qualified staff. And then once you get here, we help you to maintain being highly qualified. And this highly qualified phrase that is in a lot of state documents refers to teachers, administrators, and teaching assistants. I am not limiting that highly qualified statement to just those three types of employees. I believe all of our staff, no matter what you do for us, have to be highly qualified, and we have an obligation to assist in keeping them highly qualified. The other thing that is important, I do lots and lots of interviews. I look for people that respect themselves, respect others, respect children, and like children. The next slide. So these two next slides have the major responsibilities that the staff in HR are responsible for. Some of them are pretty obvious. The HR staff works really hard every day to assist any employee in any aspect of their work. Once you're on board here, in any capacity, we continuously support your growth in your position, either through professional development opportunities, employee relations, it's a good thing to get along with one another, employee assistance programs, conflict resolutions, things like that. On the next slide, some of this listing is not quite as obvious as it might be as what an HR department would do. It's kind of more like behind the scenes, behind the curtain. I'm a huge fan of the Wizard of Oz, so I love the behind the curtain analogy. But these are just as important in managing our health benefits plans that our employees can take advantage of. We have 3 unions in the district, so we're continuously doing contract negotiations. Once the contracts are negotiated, then the next step is labor relations and the management of those contracts. We also have a large part of our time dedicated not only in my division, but in Ms. Roaring's division, to manage workman's comp issues and unemployment issues. So although it may be behind the curtain, it's very intense and it's also very important. HR is never not busy, but we do have peak times of activities. So for example, each spring and each summer, we are recruiting, interviewing, hiring for the upcoming school year in September. At the same time, we are interviewing, recruiting, and hiring summer school staff. So we have peaks. We never have valleys, and some peaks are a little bit higher than others. So some of our work is cyclical, but as I need to stress, we are never not busy. Next slide. So this is the current staffing level of human resources. The assistant superintendent, principal typist, I have 3. Typists, we have 2. 1 is currently vacant, and a benefits specialist. This school district is one of the largest employers in Orange County. We have approximately 2,500 employees. That includes our full-time staff, our part-time staff, and our substitute staff. So when I looked at this slide, I said, oh, this looks like it's very heavy in clerical titles. Well, let me tell you, that's deceiving. The staff in HR have been in this department most for 10 to 15 years, some more than 20 years. They each know this work inside out. Thank you. And they don't just perform clerical tasks, I don't like that word. They perform very complex, high-level tasks each and every day. We would not survive without the support staff in HR. So to ensure this high level of service that our employees receive from our department, in a moment, I am going to ask you to consider an increase in the staffing levels of HR. That will, I believe, and I hope that you'll consider at least that in order to maintain the work level that we currently have and the service level that we currently have, you would consider that. Next slide. Okay, this is HR's 25-26 proposed budget. And as Ms. Roaring has said throughout her presentations, the major expense drivers are the staff that is assigned to HR. One of my larger lines that is not staff related is the contract services line. One large piece of our contract services line each year is the fee that the school district pays to the City of Newburgh Civil Service Commission. We are part of that commission. They support all of our civil service positions that that are classified as competitive. So if we have to give tests, they grade the tests, they assist us in that. And we contribute about between $75,000 and $80,000 a year towards that operation. The other expenses in that line are maintenance requirements for the software that we currently use for HR. And then the other expenses listed here are typical, let's say, expenses of mileage supplies. And the BOE services, just let me speak to that a minute. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Roaring. Is that the EAP services for BOCES?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Next slide, please. So these are requests for your consideration to increase the staffing level in HR. Currently, I'm the interim assistant superintendent. I worked here for 44 years. I retired in 2016, and I came back in 2024, September, to assist the division while they are recruiting for a full-time assistant superintendent. Up until that point, there were 2 certified administrators in that department. That is not the case any longer. So these are positions that I am asking to you to consider. Director of HR would be a confidential managerial position to assist the assistant superintendent as needed and to direct and manage all the CSEA employment operations. This person will also be one of the people that will work with the technology department to move us out of the 18th century. We are currently in the 18th century in HR. We need to get at least up to the 20th century. And we have so much paper that we need to start to automate our day-to-day tasks. That would be one of the major responsibilities that I would ask this individual to assume. Next is an HR generalist, also a confidential managerial position. This person would collaborate and coordinate the management of the day-to-day work in our division and to streamline the work that we do with other divisions. We work very closely with the finance division. A lot of what we do is hand in hand. We also support special ed, we support C&I, so this would be one of the responsibilities of this individual. The other important piece, the data that we enter in HR has to be the right data, because if it's not, it will wind up affecting other divisions and things will get a little messed up. So this person, I need somebody in that division that takes seriously the integrity of the data that we're entering, can check that data, run reports, just find errors and then correct them. And then the last position is a part-time clerk. We are never not going to have paper, so we need assistance with filing, copying, and then additionally some verification of reports and some basic data entry. Next slide, please. And for the positions that I just described, Ms. Roaring assisted me with presenting the most realistic cost for such request. So these costs reflect not only the salary, but the payroll taxes, health benefits, and the retirement system contributions. And then the additional $10,000 that I'm requesting, we occasionally get requests from many, many agencies, state, federal agencies, to run reports, and those requests are very time-intensive and task-intensive, and sometimes I have needed to request someone to come in to assist me with that, and that is what that $10,000 is for. So I appreciate you listening to me and taking my suggestions under consideration. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So we're going to also review next the business office and transportation. If you could advance 2 slides, please. So the functions in the business office include paying the 2,500 people Ms. Limer mentioned that we have, as well as purchasing, collecting taxes, administering the extra classroom fund, accounting, and paying all those bills that come through the door. Next slide, please. So when we look at our current staffing, we have an assistant superintendent for finance, a business administrator who oversees the day-to-day operations in the finance office, including the district treasurer, the purchasing agent, 2 principal account clerks, 4 junior accountants, each focused on a very specific area, 4 senior account clerks to support our accounts payable and payroll operations, an account clerk, and our tax collector who actually has 3 part-time cashiers. Next slide, please. This is our proposed budget for next year in 25-26 for the business office operations. You'll see in here that the largest increase is attributable to the salary increases, both in the support staff for finance and the treasury office as we recruit new staff in. Next slide, please. We do have 1 additional funding request. That is for an additional account clerk to support our AP operations. We used to have 3 clerks in that area, and we went down a clerk back in 23-24 at the end of the 22-23 school year. And we have been challenged to keep up with the volume of bills that come through the door. So we are asking for consideration for a 3rd account clerk that would work in the accounts payable function. Next slide, please. In our transportation office, what we do, we route and transport students in compliance with state law. We process a number of alternative stop requests from our parents. Some of those change during the year multiple times. We also collaborate with our schools and departments on planning field trips for our students, athletic travel transportation, We also work on transportation specific for our Regents testing, as well as our summer programming, which is a varied schedule and interesting to collaborate on. And then I think one of the things that we've really added and tried to focus on in the last 2 years in the transportation office is we're doing professional development for the drivers and the monitors that goes above and beyond what the state requires. Their employer provides that, but we're giving them some additional tools in their toolbox as they work and interact with our students. Next slide, please. Our current staffing in the transportation office includes a transportation coordinator, an assistant transportation coordinator, a student transportation information specialist who is our only bilingual speaker in that department, and an assistant to the transportation coordinator. Next slide, please. The proposed budget for the transportation office is expected to increase at this point about $2.9 million. We're continuing to evaluate that number as we move through the year and finalize our end-of-year projected expenditure in this area. That is largely attributed to our contract transportation increase. Next slide, please. So there is one additional request for the transportation office. We're asking for consideration for a senior typist who would be a second bilingual person in this office. They receive a large volume of calls, emails, and transactions daily from our parents, and this would really allow them to better support and respond to those in a much more timely manner, having a second bilingual person there. The other thing I want to note that's unique to this position is that we would get aid on it in 26-27 because transportation office staff are aidable with state aid. Next slide, please. I'm going to help Mr. Velez this evening. He's feeling a little under the weather, so I'm going to present his slides, but he is here to answer any of your questions. Next slide, please. So in the operations and maintenance department, they have kind of 4 key functions. We look at preventive maintenance. So how do we stop things from going wrong, right? We also look at corrective maintenance, safety and compliance, which is very important for our students, and looking at routine operations, making sure that the buildings stay clean, all the inspections are clear, and doing minor repairs to keep things operating normally. Next slide, please. This is his organizational chart, and his is much longer than everyone else's because he has a much larger team that is required to maintain all of our facilities every single day. Next slide, please. So in the operations and maintenance budget, in addition to supplies, contract services, equipment, and salaries, we also have the district's utilities. So I wanted to point that out. That is something that is different in his budget from some of the other operational departments we've talked about this evening. Right now, we are projecting an increase of a little under $838,000 year over year, which again is largely attributable to the increases in contractual salaries, overtime, and supplies and contract services as our supplies continue to go up in cost. Next slide, please. There are several additional funding requests from the Operations and Maintenance Department this evening for consideration. We were asked back in November when we did a divisional update. Mr. Velez was asked very specifically what he thought he needed. So he took that to heart and he has made these requests. The first is a turf manager, supporting the grounds crew and assisting with district athletic field maintenance and lining. This is key for us as well as we can have a turf field here at NFA Maine. Looking at a technician who would be responsible for the district phone lines that support our alarms and our elevators, which is different from our regular phone system in our schools and buildings, as well as our fire alarm system and our building management controls. These controls continue to get more and more complex, and having someone who's able to be dedicated to this is really advantageous for the individuals who are doing it now as kind of a second and third duty. The last item is really a recommendation that came forward from our insurance carrier. Mr. Velez walked our playgrounds with one of their inspectors, and they came back with an evaluation that indicated we needed to look at replacing 3 of our elementary playgrounds next year, and that's the estimated cost for that item. Next slide, please. So in the absence of one of my colleagues, I'm also going to talk to you about security this evening. So if you could go to the next slide. Security department really looks at district-wide security. They assist all of our buildings with arrival and dismissal to make sure those operations go smoothly. They respond to incidents as we need them, and they provide training to our administrators on building drills and lockdown procedures, as well as providing event security for after-school and evening activities as you see them here this evening. Next slide, please. The current staffing in the security department includes the executive director, as well as 2 district-wide senior school monitors, 7 senior school monitors, 72 full-time school monitors, and 6 part-time school monitors. Next slide, please. The year-over-year budget increase for this department is anticipated to be just under $290,000. You'll see in this very top line, over $280,000 of that is just the annual contractual salary increases that we're obligated to pay our employees. Next slide, please. Mr. Gerasi did have several additional funding requests for the board's consideration this year. The first item is looking at backpack scanners in 5 of our schools. These are secondary buildings, and the intention behind this is to really streamline arrival, as well as have a more thorough screening of the bags and things as they come in the door. The next would be additional access control card readers at 4 of our buildings. This would really help with employee access and student access when they're out on the playgrounds and things. The last item he requested was 2 additional school part-time monitors. So these individuals would be brought on to primarily assist with arrival and/or dismissal as he looks at those operations around the district. The cost estimates are included here as well, and with all of the staffing projections, we've included the anticipated cost for payroll taxes, retirement contributions, and health insurance. So that really is an all-up, all-in number. Next slide. As we continue through budget development, we're going to go through all of our BOCE service requests. We work with a number of BOCEs throughout the area and consider what we would propose to use for next year. We're going to continue to review the program and support and operational needs of the district. You'll hear from several additional departments next meeting, really focused on student instruction and supports. We will have our presentation next time really focused on curriculum instruction, exceptional learners, technology, and we're going to continue to work with our stakeholders because it's really important that we hear from you and make sure that what we're proposing is what our kids need. Questions?
Mackenzie.
So I noticed on the transportation office proposed budget, field trips are being eliminated. Are they being funded elsewhere?
So field trips aren't being eliminated, the funding lines are being consolidated.
Okay.
So you'll see some that are proposed to be 0 for next year because we've done it in bigger buckets to be administered with CNI, which is really how it operates now.
Okay.
Mr. Stewart.
On your revenue projection, I see the real estate property taxes is going to be flat. You're not proposing any changes in that?
We aren't at this time. That decision is ultimately up to the Board of Education to make. Okay, great. If you want me to, I'll move right into the next agenda item. Okay. So next, we're going to have an update on our capital projects. I have several of our partners here this evening that are going to do this presentation. We have Tom Ritzenthaler from CSR, who's one of our architectural and engineering firms. Ben Olling is here from Jacobs, who is our construction manager. And Pascal Marquiste is here from Labella, who's one of our other architecture and engineering firms. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm Tom Ritzenthaler from CSR. That's a hard act to follow. She's very good at what she does. We're going to give you, really happy to be here again. I think the last time we gave a presentation, it was my colleague Rich Peckham that was here. So I'm happy to be back to give the presentation tonight. So go to the next slide, please. Quick agenda. We're going to go through all of the capital projects and the status of each. So we're going to start out with the main NFA main elevated concrete replacement project. We're going to go through the Heritage Middle School site circulation project, the locker room renovation project. Of course, everyone wants to know about the new CTE, and hopefully you've seen the incredible project advances there. We're going to go through the CTE budget review, then New Windsor Elementary School project, the Prop 5 projects with the district-wide AC, and then the 2019. We're going to give you a cost comparison between where we are with current budgets and expenditures related to the original, what was presented to the voters back in 2019. So I always start with this slide because I want everyone to just remember that the reason we have school construction program is to improve the education for children. We always have to understand what kind of impact it's going to have on our students. So we'll start with the emergency concrete replacement. Next slide, please. So again, with this, as we reported at the last meeting, we are still awaiting the delivery of the FRP doors and some storefronts. Those are scheduled to come in next month, and those will then get installed. We anticipate those will be complete by May. And then we're going to have to take a little bit of a break because the last part of the construction is the application of a traffic coding system on the concrete that was installed, and we cannot do that until the temperatures are at a point where we have the adequate temperature for that coating to cure. In addition, we really need the students to be out of the building for the summer because that area has to be restricted to allow it to cure properly. So we're going to have to wait until the students are out at the end of June, so we'll complete that in July and then close the project out right thereafter. Heritage Middle School, just remember the components of the project. We did the vehicle staging area right off of Union Avenue. We did the upgrade to the full bus loop, the asphalt, the connector piece, of course, the new entry exit for emergency and staff vehicles off of Union Avenue, and then the increase in parking around the site as well. And then we did some gutter replacement to the roofing systems on the building. So if we go to the next slide. So here's a overhead photograph. So you can see the queue lanes for the morning drop-off and the afternoon pickup. It's actually worked very, very well to get cars off Union Avenue and limit that backup. You can see the new sidewalk for drop-offs goes all the way around the bus loop. That's all been replaced. The asphalt's all been upgraded. The new parking areas off the new off the various drives and parking areas. And then you can see the work in progress. That's the new secondary entrance exitway. We experienced the water main that was running through that area did not have enough coverage. And so we've been working on getting that rerouted to provide additional coverage in that area. Winter got in front of us, so we're going to have to actually complete that come spring. So we did do the upgrades to the gutters on the main building to prevent additional deterioration. That's been completed. It's all been done historically accurate and looks actually very, very nice. Here you can see a live shot overhead. I show you this because you can see how nice the queue lanes are working for the parking for the pickups. And so you can see all the traffic is off of Union Avenue. It's working really as expected. And again, here's the last area we have to complete with the new secondary entrance and exit. Again, we're going to drop and provide additional coverage to that main water main that runs down through the site here, and then reclaim the site with asphalt paving, curbing, landscaping, and then they'll demobilize. So we had substantial completion of the bus loop and all the related work on August 30th before the beginning of the school year. So we were in operation. We're looking at substantial completion of the secondary entrance and exit this spring. And then we're looking to close out the project again this spring, probably by April or May. And from an overall budgeting standpoint, again, even with the water main realignment that we had to do for the road network, we are still showing ourselves almost $200,000 under budget at this point. So, yeah, that's good news. That's good news. So the locker room renovation project, we have our SED approval for this. If you go to the next slide, please. Of course, for everyone that remembers, this is an renovation to the boys' main locker room, and also a boys' team room, a girls' team room, coaches' offices for both boys and girls, the upgraded gender-neutral locker room, which will also serve potentially as a coach's locker room as well during certain events. And this is all done in the same area where we did the elevated concrete walkway replacement. So next slide, please. So we got our approval last January. SED approval was at the end of December in 2024. We're anticipating, this says March 2025. It's actually going out to bid February 20th of this month. So we're going to be a little ahead of schedule for the public bid. We do anticipate awarding in April. And then the start of construction thereafter. It's a very segregated area of the high school, so we can work even while school is in session. and we will certainly have a separation of the work site from any activities on site with the students. We anticipate substantial completion in November, and then we'll close the project out thereafter, December or January. So that one's right on track. So now, obviously, the new CTE building, and hopefully everybody's been by the site to see the incredible amount of progress that's happened. We've shown many of these. Here's the site plan for the new CTE building, so this will make more sense when we show you the actual live photos. The floor plans, I'm not going to go through all the floor plans because we've shown them in many occasions. And of course, the rendering of what it will look like. This is a view from West Street. So next slide. So just from the schedule standpoint, we did start construction in September. We had the formal groundbreaking, if everyone remembers, in October of last year. And again, we're still on track for that July 31st completion of 2026. That's next year, allowing the district a full month for move-in and startup of all the building systems, fit and finish, and then ready for the students to have their start in September of 2026. I'm going to show you these photographs. This is winter construction. I do certainly want to thank all of the hardworking men and women that are on this site on a daily basis. It's really cold. Winter construction is not fun. And so I really commend them for the work that they're doing for all the students in Newburgh. It's really coming along. As you can see the progress, you can see this is a view looking from the south toward the northwest. The main two-story academic portion of the building with all of the vet tech and culinary, and that's all in this one main portion of the building. And the far side is the gymnasium. You can see how the site is staged to allow it to continue. That gray block in the middle is one of the stair towers. All the stair towers are block construction. Next slide. So you can see working, this is the kind of the back side of the site. This is looking back toward West Street. This is where all of the auto and construction trades programs will be. And then this is the two-story portion of the building, which again, will have culinary, we'll have nursing, we'll have one of the science rooms, we'll have barbering, cosmetology, et cetera. Some views from inside the construction. This is on the second floor of that two-story section of the building. You can see the middle is one of the stair towers. Again, some views from inside, some of the block work. Again, winter construction, very, very difficult. So certainly thankful to all the men and women working on the site. So with that, I'm going to let Ben come up and talk about the budget and move forward from there.
Good evening, all. As you can see on this budget slide, this gives a breakdown of what the hard cost was for the contractors that were bought out. This is the state contracts on top of that number, all equaling up to the $74,608,137 below. This gives you an aggregate total down at the bottom of $86,993. That's with the furnishing, finishes, and equipment, as well as a contingency number built into that number. And this is just a reiteration of that amount. This is a change order slide just showing where we are in relationship to the contingency budgeted, and the 1.55 million, which was presented in a previous meeting for unsuitable soils, is the change order that's applying to that right now. Rolling into New Windsor Elementary School. If we go to the next slide, this is a breakdown for the progress of construction. Looking to put out the phase one rebid for the general contractor's work. This would capture the work for areas C, D, and E of the existing building of that elementary school, as well as there will be renovations to the faculty parking lot above. Phase two will be the addition of the building and the renovation of building area B, which houses the the main office area, as well as some of the academic portions of that building. This then just kind of goes down the list of the renovation work that's happening, as well as the addition work. This is a snapshot of those sections of the building that I just spoke about for phase one. This is the lower level of New Windsor, renovating areas D, C, and E, mainly mechanical upgrade work with some finished work involved with those. This is the upper level, first floor of New Windsor, renovating areas D, C, and E, mainly mechanical upgrades with some sprinkle of finished work. This is the faculty parking lot that would be renovated in that phase one work. This moves on to Proposition 5. Bring Pasquale up to present. Pasquale's with Labella.
Thank you, everybody, and good evening. Congratulations to appointed superintendent. Good luck with your work. Good evening to the respectful board for Newburgh and the few remaining of the public. So just a quick update, Proposition 5 of the 2019 Capital Improvement Project. Proposition 5 is related strictly with AC upgrade all this district school. We are currently working phase one that include 3 school building. It will be Gidney Elementary, Temple Hill, and Meadow Hill. So just a quick update based on the timeline. We submit to SCD December 28, 2023. We get approval October 2024. We opened bid in December, and then the first contract that was awarded on January 14 was the mechanical work. And we sent the notice to proceed on January 15. And we're planning to start construction probably during winter break, and then spring break, and then during the summer. Complete the work with the substantial completion August 2025 and close out in November 2025. Next, okay, thank you. As I mentioned, the board awarded the mechanical contract. We received 2 bids, MDS, HVAC, and ACS system. Based on our recommendation between representative of the district, Jacobs and Labella, we went through and we made the recommendation for the, like I mentioned early, January 14 board meeting, and was awarded to MDS for an amount of $13,549,550. Construction budget, we had a previous an estimate that was about 16.5 million. So we are currently under budget, short than 3 million. Then we receive also in December, we receive one contract, one bid for electrical, and then we will see at the next slide, stay at this slide, please. We will see at the next slide also for GC. For those 2 contracts, we had to do some additional diligent work to make sure we could recommend those are the 2, contract number 2 for electrical and contract number 3 for GC. So we receive, unfortunately, only one bid. That's the reason we took a little bit of time to make the recommendation. It was Castleman Electric, and the base bid was 1.7 million and change. Based on construction budget, we previously put it together. We are a little bit more than 900,000 under budget. So, and finally, for the GC work, we received 2 bids. Profex Incorporated, the start construction. After we went through really thorough investigation for both contracts, we made our recommendation to Profex with the base bid of for a contract of $3,155,900. And based also on previous estimate then between the Jacobs and La Bella put together, we are a little bit less than 300,000 under budget. Next one, okay, that's yours.
This is just the estimated budget before we went and sent out to bid. This was done back in May of last year. And this just breaks down what we iterated on the other slides on a per trade basis. Next slide. And these are just overall floor plans of the mechanical upgrade work. This is a general plan view for Meadow and Temple Hill, having very similar footprint and scope. Upgrading the unit ventilators and the majority of the classrooms. And then there's some accessory spaces that will be getting mechanical upgrades. This shows pad-mounted condenser units that will be servicing those heating and ventilation units in the spaces. You go to the next slide. This is just the upper floor of those two schools, as well as the rooftop and fan room plan views. The next slide. And then this is the project scope area for Gidney Avenue Elementary School, Gidney Avenue School, showing the mechanical upgrades to that one wing of the building, as well as some AC and heat at the front vestibule, and some mechanical work at the back end of the building. Next slide. And this is just the upper roof section where there's mechanical rooftop units that will be servicing the assembly space. So this next slide, this is the definitions slide, explaining what incidental costs are versus construction hard costs, because on the next slide we'll be showing the budget comparison. So incidental costs are typically costs with services that aid the construction but are outside of the contractor's cost. Examples include architectural engineering fees, construction manager fees, hazardous material and monitoring, legal fees, special inspection testing, insurance review, furniture, fixtures, equipment, and technology, financing costs. And then the construction hard cost definition is really costs directly related to the physical construction of the building or project. They're often referred to as brick and mortar costs. Hard costs include labor and material costs. So those are just construction terms that we use in our budget as it relates to how we describe what the difference in costs are. So in this slide, you'll see this is a comparison. This is the numbers that were put forth in the original bond presentation done back in 2019, subtracting out the incidental costs, which we just described in the other slide. This is currently the construction hard cost. Filtered in here are some project estimates, which you will see with this blue star next to the items that are estimated costs. So in this left column, that shows the delta between what was originally proposed in 2019 to make up the $257 million or $56 million bond program between Proposition 5 and Proposition 4, and where we stand right now as it relates to that. A lot of the projects do estimate over the original value planned in 2019. This is showing that relationship between those two. There is still money in some of these other school projects that have not started and have not been done in some of these instances, and you can see as we work down this list, the next slide also shows the other schools that are in here. This also shows the projects that were planned for each of these schools, whether that be mechanical upgrade work or it's additions and renovations. So this shows a subtotal. There was $214,166,666 as your total construction hard costs based on the original proposal. $218,594,729 is made up of either what has been applied for construction costs or what has been estimated under those projects. And this is showing a subtotal negative amount based on where that is in relationship to the initial project estimated budget. And then this is opening up for questions.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Thank you. Thank you for the wow, there's a lot of mics going on there. Thank you for the presentation. One quick question. You, on slides 4, like your page 4, 5, you show Meadow Hill and Temple Hill, and you show pinked out areas in which is going to be the mechanical upgrades. The areas in white, they have existing, or we're not doing that, or what's the story with the areas not highlighted as far as HVAC?
So, yep, this is Pasquale. Some of the area they already have, sorry, that's bad. So some of the area they already have existing AC, so that's the reason it's upgrade or replacement. Some area they are white, you have to refer to the second floor like cafeteria and gym that we show there. So there is a minimal really, if you look the second floor and the first floor, there is a minimal white, and mostly in some accessory rooms. But most of the building will be, not most, all building will be AC.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And so now I'll turn it over to the clerk of the board.
Thank you, Madam President. I have two items, the approval of the minutes from January 28th and approving the budget election calendar.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
The board packets, if you're interested in running for the board, will be available starting Friday the 21st. The petitions will be due back in the clerk's office by the 30th of April, 5 o'clock. That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you. Resolution 6.1, resolution to authorize the school attorney to conduct an investigation. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
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 Mackenzie?
Can I make a motion to table this until after executive session so we can discuss with the lawyer?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Roll call to table. Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
So now I'll turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Ms. Leemer.
Thank you, Madam President. On the Human Resources agenda, we have items 7.1 through 7.15 for your consideration on consent.
Would anyone like to separate any out? Victoria?
7.3, 7.4, and 7.5.
3, 4, 5. Okay. So So can I have a motion on 7.1 through 7.15, minus 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5?
So moved.
Second. And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Item 7.3, a resolution to approve a contract in lieu of probation.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Victoria?
I'd like to make a motion to amend, per the verbiage here. It should say acting superintendent, not deputy superintendent,
Okay.
per our attorney.
Okay.
So moved.
Did you second?
Yeah, second.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Can we make that, if you're going to make that motion to amend, can you make that motion to amend 7, 3, 4, and 5 at the same time?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. And then, did I get a second?
I didn't mark down a second.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Roll call on the amendment to change deputy superintendent to acting superintendent. Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Okay. And now,
Point of order, ma'am?
Oh.
So the motion on 7.3 has been amended.
oh.
Now you just have to take a roll call as amended. You amended all three at one time, so now you just need, yeah. But now you need a roll call on each individual one. Then there's a question.
Mr. DeRay?
I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but on the contract, it does not have the superintendent of schools. Does that make a difference? The acting
Mr. Shaw?
superintendent.
That'll be corrected for signature.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call on 7.3 as amended.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Abstain.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a motion on 7.4 as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Oh, can I have a motion on 7.5 as amended?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items.
Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance, Ms. Roaring.
Thank you. The Finance Division presents items 8.1 to 8.8 for consent this evening.
Would anyone like to separate any out? Mr. Stewart?
8.1 and 8.2, please.
Ms. Boucher?
8.4.
Can I have a motion on 8.1 through 8.3 through 8.8 minus 8.4.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Resolution 8.1, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Mr. Duray, did you say second?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay, discussion? Mr. Stewart?
Yes, is it possible to get the reason behind the warrants? I know that's one of the things that the external audit had. So if we could just get the reasons behind them so it's easier to look at them. Thank you.
So that is something the accounts payable team is working diligently on as we move forward into February. So you should see a significant difference when you receive those reports in March.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Can I have a motion on 8.2?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Stewart?
Yes, the Audit and Finance Committee reviewed this thoroughly. We had a couple questions that they're going to answer to us. And I want to say that on the budget transfer reports, it's the first time we were able to see the transfers that were less than 200,000, and everything looked okay. So I recommend from the Audit and Finance Committee that we approve this.
Roll call.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes. Resolution 8.4, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mackenzie?
Sorry. We heard some parent discussion around a wrestling mat being the wrong mat, so I just want to make sure that this was looked at by the coach and that it is the right mat is getting thrown away, and that if there's a new mat, that it's here or coming.
Roll call. Ms. Roaring?
So Dr. Soto and I have had conversations with Mr. Hodge, and this is the correct mat. They are looking very closely at how it's labeled to make sure that the correct mat is taken this time by the team that goes to dispose of it, and they are in the process of ordering the new custom mat.
Roll call.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Now I'll turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of CIO/DPO.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight, Technology and Data presents items 9.1 through 9.3 for your consideration, for the board's consideration.
Does anyone want to separate any out? Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items for tonight.
Thank you. And now I turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction for elementary.
Thank you. The Division of Curriculum and Instruction, Elementary, present items 10.1 and 10.2 for your consideration.
Does anyone want to separate any? Okay. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction for Secondary, Ms. Soto.
Good evening. The Curriculum Instruction Secondary Level presents Agenda Items 11.1 and 11.2 for the Board's consideration on consent.
Does anyone want to separate any? No. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Exceptional Learners, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Madam President. The Exceptional Learner Division has 12.1 for the Board's consideration.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello? Ms.
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose. Matters made confidential under FERPA, matters leading to the employment of particular employees, employment history of employees or corporations, litigation, CPL architects, engineers, and landscape architects v. NECSD, Butler Construction Group Incorporated v. NECSD, and the Palumbo Group v. NECSD, and to obtain advice from legal counsel.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Is everybody here? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli? Mr. Duray? Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart? Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.